Picture this scenario because I guarantee this has happened to you in the last 6 months. You're at checkout, maybe buying groceries or filling up gas, and the total comes to $87. You reach for your wallet, and for a split second, you think about using cash, but then you remember you've got that credit card. It's convenient, you'll get points. You'll pay it off next month, so you swipe. The transaction takes 3 seconds. You don't feel anything, no physical money left your hands. It's just numbers on a screen. And that's exactly what they're counting on, because in that moment, you didn't just buy $87 worth of stuff. You activated a psychological trap that's been engineered over decades to transfer wealth from your pocket into the banking system. And they're so good at it that last year alone, credit card companies made over $120 billion in interest and fees. Not from fraud, not from mistakes, from regular people like you who think they're using a convenient payment tool. My name is Mike, and I spend way too much time reverse engineering the financial systems designed to keep regular people broke while making corporations billions. If you've ever looked at your credit card statement and thought, how did I spend that much? Or if you're carrying a balance that never seems to go down no matter how much you pay, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Because today we're not talking about budgeting tips or how to improve your credit score. We're talking about something much darker. We're exposing the credit card trap. The mathematical and psychological weapon that's been deployed against your brain to make you spend money you don't have, pay interest you can't afford, and stay trapped in a cycle that enriches banks while destroying your financial future. Here's the thing about credit cards that nobody explains. When you're signing up for that 0% introductory rate with the cute design, credit cards aren't designed to be convenient for you. They're designed to be profitable for the bank. Every single feature. From the rewards points to the minimum payment calculation to the way they display your balance has been A/B tested and psychologically optimized to make you spend more and pay less. Keeping you in debt for as long as possible, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is documented business strategy, and once you see how it works, you'll never look at that piece of plastic the same way again. Let's start with the most fundamental psychological hack that credit cards exploit: the pain of paying. There's a concept in behavioral economics that when you hand over physical cash, your brain registers pain, actual measurable activation in the areas of your brain associated with loss and discomfort. It's why casinos use chips instead of cash. It's why mobile games use gems instead of dollars, and it's why credit cards exist. When you swipe a card, there's no pain, there's no tangible loss. You're not watching bills leave your hand. You're just tapping a piece of plastic and walking away. Studies have shown that people spend 12 to 18% more when using credit cards versus cash for the exact same purchases. That's not because they have more money, it's because the transaction doesn't feel real. Your brain doesn't register the loss until weeks later when the statement arrives. And by then, the damage is done, but it gets so much worse. Credit card companies know that the disconnect between spending and paying is their biggest asset. So they've built an entire ecosystem around maximizing that gap. Let's talk about rewards points, because this is where people really get manipulated into thinking they're winning. You sign up for a card that gives you 2% cash back or airline miles or hotel points, and you think, great. I'm getting free money just for spending what I was going to spend anyway. But here's the math they don't want you to do. If you carry a balance, and according to the Federal Reserve, about 45% of credit card holders do, you're paying an average interest rate of around 20%. Let's say you spend $1,000 on that 2% cashback card. Congratulations, you earned $20, but if you're carrying that balance and paying interest, you're paying roughly $200 a year in interest on that $1,000. You got $20 back and paid $200 in interest. That's not a reward, that's a con. You gave them $180 to feel like you were winning $20. And even if you pay your balance in full every month, which most people don't, the rewards are still a trap. Because the existence of rewards makes you spend more. It gamifies spending. Every purchase becomes an opportunity to earn points. So you're unconsciously looking for reasons to use the card. That 2% cashback isn't free money from the bank's generosity. It's a marketing expense they're paying to manipulate your behavior into spending more, and the research backs this up. People with rewards cards spend significantly more than people with non-rewards cards. Even when controlling for income, the rewards aren't covering the overspending. You're losing money while thinking you're gaining it. Now let's talk about interest rates because this is where the trap really shows its teeth. The average credit card interest rate in 2025 is between 19% and 24%. Some store cards go as high as 30%. To put that in perspective, if you invested money and earned a 20% return every year, you'd be considered one of the greatest investors alive. Warren Buffett averages around 20% over his career, and he's a billionaire legend. But credit card companies are getting that return from you, and nobody thinks twice about it. If a loan shark on the street offered you money at 20% interest, you'd call it predatory. When a bank does it with a piece of plastic that has your name embossed on it, you call it convenience. Here's how devastating that interest actually is. Let's say you have a $5,000 balance on a card with a 20% APR. If you only make the minimum payment, which is usually around 2% of the balance or $25, whichever is higher, it will take you over 30 years to pay off that debt. 30 years. And you'll end up paying over $13,000 in interest. You borrowed $5,000 and paid back $18,000. That's not a loan, that's a trap. You're paying for that dinner you put on the card in 2025 until you're retired in 2055. And the really sick part is, the minimum payment is deliberately calculated to maximize the bank's profit. It's just enough to keep you out of default, but low enough to keep you in debt forever. Let me break down the minimum payment scam even further because most people don't understand how it works. When you get your credit card bill, it shows you a minimum payment. Let's say $100 on a $5,000 balance. You think, okay, I can afford $100 this month. What you don't realize is that out of that $100, maybe $83 is going toward interest and only $17 is actually reducing your debt. So you're paying $100 to reduce your balance by $17. That's a 6-to-1 ratio of payment to progress. It's like running on a treadmill where the belt is moving backward. You're working, you're sweating, you're exhausted, but you're barely moving forward. And that's by design. The bank wants you to feel like you're making progress without actually escaping the debt. Now let's talk about fees because interest isn't the only way they're extracting money from you. Late fees average around $30 to $40. Sounds small, right? But if you're late once, you're also likely going to trigger a penalty, a PR, which can jump your interest rate to 2,999%. So that $30 late fee just cost you an extra 10% in interest on your entire balance going forward. Over the course of a year, that one missed payment could cost you hundreds or thousands of dollars. And it's not just late fees, there are over-limit fees. Balance transfer fees, cash advance fees, foreign transaction fees, annual fees. Every interaction with the card is an opportunity for the bank to charge you. It's death by 1,000 cuts, and each cut is profitable. Then there's the cash advance trap, which is one of the most predatory features that exists. Let's say you're desperate, you need cash, and you use your credit card at an ATM. The bank will charge you a cash advance fee, usually 3 to 5% of the amount. Plus, they'll charge you interest starting immediately. No grace period, usually at a higher rate than purchases, sometimes 25 to 28%. So if you take out $500, you're immediately charged $25, and then you start accruing $10 or more per month in interest. You borrowed $500, and within a year you've paid $150 in fees and interest. That's a 30% effective interest rate. Loan sharks would be jealous, and the bank doesn't advertise this. It's buried in the fine print. They want you to think it's a feature, a convenience when it's actually financial poison. Let's talk about the psychological trick of available credit. When you have a credit card with a $10,000 limit, your brain starts to treat that as available money. It's not your money. It's the bank's money that they're letting you borrow at 22% interest. But it doesn't feel that way. It feels like a cushion, like a safety net, like purchasing power. So when you see something you want, your brain thinks, I have $10,000 available. I can afford this $200 purchase. No, you can't. You don't have $10,000. You have debt capacity, and every time you use that capacity, you're paying a toll to access money that isn't yours. This is why people with higher credit limits spend more, not because they have more income, but because the illusion of available money tricks their brain into feeling wealthier than they are. There's also a phenomenon called lifestyle creep that credit cards enable. You get a raise. Let's say you go from $50,000 a year to $60,000. That's $10,000 more after taxes. Maybe you're taking home an extra $600 a month, but because you have credit cards, your spending increases by $800 a month. You're eating out more, upgrading your wardrobe, buying nicer things, because you feel like you can afford it now, but you're not using your raise, you're using credit. So even though you're making more money, you're actually going deeper into debt. The credit card allows you to outspend your income growth, and you don't notice until the bills start piling up. This is why people making six figures can still be living paycheck to paycheck. The credit limit expanded faster than their paycheck did. Now here's where it gets really dark. Credit card companies specifically target people who are already struggling. They call them revolvers, people who revolve a balance month to month. These are the most profitable customers. If you pay your balance in full every month, the bank calls you a deadbeat. Yes, that's the actual industry term, because you're not making them money. You're using their service for free. The people they want are the ones drowning in debt, making minimum payments, paying interest forever. And they market aggressively to those people. You ever notice how when you're struggling financially, you suddenly get bombarded with pre-approved credit card offers? That's not a coincidence. They're targeting you because they know you're vulnerable. They know you're desperate, and they know that desperation makes you a profitable customer. Let's talk about the buy now, pay later evolution of the credit card trap. Services like Afterpay, Klarna, Affirm, they're the new generation of the same scam. They've rebranded debt as flexibility. Instead of paying $400 now, pay $100 over 4 payments. No interest sounds great, right? Except for 3 problems first. It makes you spend more because $100 feels more affordable than $400, even though you're paying the same amount. Second, you now have 4 future payments locked in, which reduces your cash flow for the next 8 weeks, which makes you more likely to use credit cards for other purchases. And third, if you miss one of those payments, the fees and interest kick in, and suddenly your interest-free purchase is costing you 20% more. These companies aren't offering you a service. They're offering you a gateway drug to debt. And here's the truly insidious part. Credit cards have normalized debt in the 1950s. Carrying consumer debt was shameful. People saved up and paid cash now. Having credit card debt is just considered normal adulting. We've been conditioned to accept 20% interest rates as the cost of living. We've been taught that everyone has credit card debt, so it's fine, but it's not fine. It's a systemic transfer of wealth from working people to financial institutions. Every dollar of interest you pay is a dollar you're not investing. It's a dollar you're not saving. It's a dollar that could have been compounding in your favor. But instead, it's compounding in the bank's favor over a lifetime. The difference between someone who uses credit cards responsibly and someone who carries balances is hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost wealth. So what's the solution? How do you escape the credit card trap? It's not sexy, it's not a hack. But it works. First, if you're carrying balances, you need to treat that debt like the financial emergency it is. Not the vacation, not the new gadget, the debt. Because every month you carry that balance, you're paying a 20% penalty on your life. Use the avalanche method. Pay off the highest interest rate card first while making minimums on the others. Or use the snowball method. Pay off the smallest balance first for psychological wins. I don't care which method you use. Just pick one and attack it with intensity second. If you can't trust yourself with credit cards, cut them up, literally. Take scissors and destroy them. I know that sounds extreme, but if you're someone who overspends every time you have access to credit, the card is not a tool. It's a weapon you're using against yourself. Go cash only. Use a debit card if you need electronic payments. The inconvenience of not having credit is nothing compared to the financial destruction of misusing it. Third, if you're going to use credit cards, you need to follow one non-negotiable rule. Pay the full balance every single month. Not the minimum, not most of it, all of it. If you can't pay it off in full, you can't afford the purchase period. The moment you start revolving a balance, you've lost. You're now a profit center for the bank instead of a customer. Fourth, stop chasing rewards. I know it's tempting. I know you want the points, but rewards are bait. They're designed to make you spend more. And for most people, they do. If you're using credit cards for rewards, track your spending with and without the card. I guarantee you'll find that you spend more when rewards are involved. The 2% cashback isn't worth the 15% overspending. Fifth, automate everything. Set up autopay to pay the full balance every month. This removes the temptation to pay the minimum. It removes the risk of forgetting and getting hit with late fees. If you don't have the money in your checking account to cover the full balance, that's a signal that you're overspending, and you need to cut back and finally change your relationship with debt. Debt is not normal. Debt is not a tool. Debt is risk. Every dollar you owe is a claim on your future income. It's a chain around your freedom. The bank wants you to think of credit as purchasing power, but it's actually purchasing slavery. You're enslaving your future self to pay for your current self's desires. And the longer you stay in that mindset, the longer you stay trapped. Here's what most people don't realize: the system relies on your ignorance. Credit card companies spend billions on marketing to make debt look attractive, to make minimum payments look manageable, to make rewards look valuable. They don't want you doing the math. They don't want you understanding the true cost. They want you focused on the monthly payment, not the total cost of ownership. But once you see the math, once you understand that a $5,000 balance costs you $13,000, once you realize that 20% interest is robbing you of your future, you can't unsee it, and that knowledge is the first step to breaking free. If you're sitting here thinking, "But Mike, I need my credit card for emergencies," let me ask you this. How many of your credit card purchases in the last year were actual emergencies? Not conveniences, not impulse buys, not things you wanted, actual life or death emergencies. My guess is 0 or maybe 1. The rest was lifestyle spending disguised as necessity. And if you're using credit cards for emergencies, that's a symptom of a bigger problem. You don't have an emergency fund. And the solution to not having an emergency fund is not a 22% interest credit card. The solution is building an emergency fund so you never need the credit card in the first place. I want to leave you with one final thought that reframes this entire conversation. Credit cards aren't the problem. You are not the problem. The system is the problem. We live in an economy that's designed to keep you in debt. Wages have stagnated for decades while the cost of living has exploded. Housing, healthcare, education. All of it has outpaced income growth, and into that gap, the financial system inserted credit. They offered you a way to maintain your lifestyle even though your paycheck couldn't support it. They made debt feel normal. Necessary, even smart, but it's a trap. It's a way to extract wealth from people who don't have wealth to extract. And the credit card is the delivery mechanism. The average American household carries over $6,000 in credit card debt. Across the entire country, that's over $1 trillion in revolving consumer debt. At an average interest rate of 20%, that's $200 billion a year in interest payments flowing from regular people to banks. $200 billion, that's not wealth creation. That's wealth extraction. That's money that could have been spent on homes, education, retirement, starting businesses, building generational wealth instead. It's going to banks as interest on money people borrowed to survive in an economy that doesn't pay them enough to live. So yes, cut up your credit cards if you need to. Pay off your balances aggressively, stop chasing rewards, but also recognize that this is a systemic problem. You're not failing because you lack discipline. You're struggling because the game is rigged, and the only way to win a rigged game is to stop playing by their rules. Build an emergency fund, live below your means, pay cash, invest the difference, and most importantly, refuse to accept debt as normal because it's not. Now you know exactly how it works. If this video changed the way you think about credit cards, do me a favor and share it with someone who's struggling with debt. We don't talk about this stuff enough. We talk about budgets and side hustles, but we don't talk about the predatory systems designed to keep us broke. Hit that subscribe button because we're going to keep exposing these traps until everyone understands the game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.